I know this looks ridiculous. How can I possibly claim that crystal beasts are almost broken? This archetype has been around since 2007 and it's never really been a competitive deck, so who am I to say the deck is very close to being a broken theme? Well, I've been playing crystal beasts for a very long time, and throughout the years, while the deck has never been truly competitive, I've noticed that a lot of the cards have aged pretty well. And in today's video, I want to talk about what makes the Crystal Beast cards so good and what makes them maybe not competitive enough. I really do feel, as I'll explain in today's video, that Crystal Beasts are like maybe 2 or 3 cards away from being a really good archetype. And yeah, you could probably say that about a lot of decks, especially decks like this that were around back in the day and have a lot of non-once per turn cards, but I think that Crystal Beasts have some really cool interactions that other decks really just don't. This deck has consistency, it has power, but it is missing a couple other things that I want to explain in today's video. Let's talk about consistency, because a lot of rogue decks, a lot of casual decks really suffer in this department. But Crystal Beasts have tons of ways to start their combos. You have great cards like Crystal Beast Sapphire Pegasus. This is probably the best standalone Crystal Beast monster. This is the most important one for most of your plays. It is the main starter card, it is the main normal summon, and it has a great effect that's not a hard once per turn. So if Crystal Beast Sapphire Pegasus is summoned, so normal, flip, special, whatever, you can place one Crystal Beast monster from your hand, deck, or graveyard face up in your spell and trap zone as a continuous spell. This is the main mechanic of the Crystal Beast archetype, and Sapphire Pegasus gets you to whatever you need. You could even put another copy of Sapphire Pegasus in the back row to special summon later. It is a very versatile card that can pretty much do whatever you want. What makes Crystal Beast Sapphire Pegasus so good though is that it's a good statted monster. We have a level 4 here, which is great. Wind gives you access to some pretty cool extra deck monsters, and 1800 attack is pretty great as well. All of this added on to the fact that it has a great effect and it's not a hard once per turn makes for a very powerful monster in a deck that really needs cards like this. Now, for a very long time in Yu-Gi-Oh's history, opening one of your 3 copies of Crystal Beast Sapphire Pegasus usually was the difference between winning and losing. This really was the most important card to have in your opening hand in any Crystal Beast deck, and if you didn't draw it, oftentimes your hand was virtually unplayable. What was really cool though is a few years ago, Konami gave us more Crystal Beast support, and this is when the deck finally got consistent. Legendary Duelist 2 gave us 2 very important cards for the Crystal Beast deck, and this is why the deck is suddenly a lot more consistent than it ever was in the past. First, you have Crystal Bond, a normal spell card that says, add 1 Crystal Beast monster from your deck to your hand and place 1 Crystal Beast monster with a different name from your deck face up in your spell and trap zone as a continuous spell. You can only activate 1 Crystal Bond per turn. This card is ridiculous. You add that Pegasus right to your hand, so already you have 3 extra ways to find your Pegasus on turn 1, and it even places another Crystal Beast in your back row to set up your combos. As a Crystal Beast fan, Crystal Bond was pretty much all you could ever ask for. It is such a great reinforcement of the army type card for a deck that desperately needed it. But like I said, this set had 2 great cards, and the second great card was Rainbow Bridge. Rainbow Bridge is a normal spell that simply says, add 1 crystal, spell, or trap from your deck to your hand. Not a hard once per turn, by the way, so if you do have multiple copies of Rainbow Bridge, you can use all 3 in that same turn, which is obviously a big deal and helps reduce bricking. So overnight, we went from having 3 copies of Pegasus, which you basically have to open to have a chance of winning, to having 9 copies of it, because the Rainbow Bridge can search the Crystal Bond and the Crystal Bond can search the Pegasus. And while it's not the most popular card from what I've seen of modern Crystal Beast decks, you could also play Crystal Master, which you contribute contribute to add one ultimate crystal monster, crystal beast monster, or crystal spell or trap card from your deck to your hand. So that would essentially give you like 12 copies of Pegasus. I can't say I recommend playing a full 3 copies of Crystal Master, because obviously if you are normal summoning this card, you can't use your normal summon on Pegasus, but it is definitely a card to consider if you really want to boost that consistency even more. But by itself, consistency is not enough of a reason to play a deck. So let's talk about the power plays of the Crystal Beast deck. And I know this sounds like a joke because I realize Crystal Beasts are not that good of a deck, but trust me, this has always been where Crystal Beasts have been pretty good. You have really strong cards like Crystal Beacon and Crystal Promise. These are your main spells for putting more Crystal Beast monsters on the board. Crystal Beacon allows you to special summon a Crystal Beast monster from your deck if you have 2 or more Crystal Beast cards in your spell and trap card zone, and that's obviously a really powerful effect. And Crystal Promise is essentially a monster reborn. It only gets 1 Crystal Beast monster, but sometimes that's all you need. Now the main card that you want to special summon with Beacon and Promise for that matter is Crystal Beast Ruby Carbuncle. When this card is special summoned, you can special summon as many Crystal Beast monster cards as possible from your spell and trap zones. This is how you make your big plays. You put a ton of monsters on the board and then you use them for Xyz summons or Link summons or whatever. And you can trigger this Carbuncle effect multiple times in a turn. Beacon, Promise, Carbuncle, none of these cards are hard once per turn effects, so you can perform some pretty crazy combos depending on your setup. Ruby Carbuncle has always been a big deal in the Crystal Beast deck. I really wish it was level 4 and not level 3, because that would make it a lot easier to use for things like Xyz summons, but at least now we have Link summons, which do make it a little bit easier to use while on the field. And while I've never really been a big fan of Crystal Abundance, I do think it is a decent way to win the game if you actually can resolve it. I think the setup can be pretty awkward, especially in modern Yu-Gi-Oh! And also I feel like this card is super weak to any form of negation, but if it resolves, you'll probably win the game, and it definitely is one of the most powerful plays in a Crystal Beast deck if you can actually get it to work. Finally, while these have gone down in popularity throughout the years, I do want to quickly shout out Ancient City Rainbow Ruins and Rare Value. These can provide some pretty good effects if you have the right setup. Rare Value is actually probably better than Rainbow Ruins right now. You have a lot more ways to load up your back row with Crystal Beast monsters than you did back in the day, but Rainbow Ruins still has some uses. That special summon effect can be pretty big, the negation effect is alright, and the free draw is always welcome. Maybe not a staple 3 of like you used to play back in the day, but definitely a card that I would consider in a modern Crystal Beast deck if you wanted to try to play that. Now you might be thinking, well, wait a second here, you said the deck was almost broken, but you just gave it a lot of praise. And while it is true that I love all of the cards that I've mentioned so far, and some of them are very, very powerful in the context of this deck, notice how I didn't really mention a lot of monsters. Sure, Sapphire Pegasus is great, and Ruby Carbuncle obviously has a very good effect, but I did not mention any of the other Crystal Beast monsters because I'm just going to be honest with you guys, even back in 2007, they were all pretty terrible. The most common Crystal Beast monsters that you would tend to play in a Crystal Beast deck besides Pegasus or Carbuncle have pretty much always been exactly Topaz Tiger and Cobalt Eagle. Topaz Tiger gains 400 attack when it attacks an opponent's monster, which is okay, I guess, while Cobalt Eagle has pretty much primarily been played only because it's a wind monster, so you can make some pretty cool Xyz monsters with Pegasus. As far as Tortoise, Cat, and Mammoth, all of those are pretty much unplayable even by 2007 standards. So this is the biggest issue with the Crystal Beast deck right now. You have so many powerful spells and you have a pair of really strong monsters, but the other 5 monsters in the Crystal Beast archetype are all pretty useless. Now maybe 5+ years ago this wasn't that big of an issue. Crystal Beasts, as far as competitive variants have gone, have pretty much always tried to be a rank 4 spam deck, so back in the day, like 5+ years ago, it didn't matter as much that the monsters that you were spamming to make those rank 4s weren't actually that great. But in modern Yu-Gi-Oh, it's pretty tough playing a deck with so many cards that don't really do anything. And yeah, you could cut back on a lot of them. I'm pretty sure I did see a couple Crystal Beast Red Eyes Dark Dragoon decks a little while ago, because this deck can pretty easily summon 2 monsters to make that Anaconda. But what this deck really needs is more good monsters, because you can't build a deck with only Pegasus and Carbuncle. It's just not enough. So this deck really needs more monsters that actually do things, maybe even monsters that have effects while in the back row. That would be really awesome, kind of like the Vision Heroes from a few years ago. The other big issue is that about half of the support cards require you to play Rainbow Dragon, and Rainbow Dragon is simply not very good. They tried releasing that Rainbow Over Dragon in the same set of Crystal Bond and Rainbow Bridge, and you know what? That card's pretty cool in casual play. But as far as competitive Crystal Beasts go, right now there really is no reason to play Rainbow Dragon, so about half of their support cards that they've gotten over the years don't really work in the modern deck, and pretty much have never worked throughout Yu-Gi-Oh's history. Rainbow Dragon is a cool card, I know a lot of people like the card, but in terms of competitive play, it's never been quite good enough. I think it might be okay if you were allowed to use its effects on the turn it was special summoned, but with that restriction on it, it makes it pretty bad, besides the fact that you also have to play all of those crappy Crystal Beast monsters that you don't want to play. In summary, Crystal Beasts have tons of great spell cards and a bunch of non-once per turn effects that you can string together for some big combos, either with rank 4 monsters or link monsters or whatever you want. However, they don't really have enough good monsters to play, so a lot of these support cards require you to play a lot of Crystal Beast monsters you don't really want to draw ever, and that does create a bricking situation, and a lot of their support is not very useful because it deals with Rainbow Dragon. I really do think that Crystal Beasts are very close to being a broken archetype. They just need a few more monster cards that actually do something. I don't know if that will ever happen. I don't know if Konami will ever give us Crystal Beast monsters that aren't the original 7, but personally I would be really excited to see how good this deck could be in competitive tournaments if they got a few good monsters beyond what they have right now. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching today's video. I'll see you later. Goodbye.